It's time for the 8-Minute Devotion. The 8-Minute Devotion is a daily message that fills you with hope and encouragement from the Word of God. Here's your host, Pastor Cameron Walcott.
Well, hello, and we are back on the 8-Minute Devotion. So glad that you have joined us. So glad you're here on our Thursday episode. We are in the book of Romans, and Romans is such a glorious book. Romans is such a glorious letter that God has written, that God has given to his people. You know, if it wasn't for the book of Romans, we would be missing so much on the doctrine of salvation. We would be missing so many details on what it means that God saved us, and what it means to be a Christian, and what it means to be born again. We would be missing out on a lot. But because God gave us this book, because God gave us this letter, we have such insight into what it means to be saved. And the last few days we were talking about justification. Justification means to be found just as if I had never sinned. Another way, justification means to be found innocent in the eyes of God, innocent in heaven's courts. And we said over and over, I repeated this, I drive this point down as forcefully as possible, as repeatedly as possible, because I want to make sure our self-righteousness, our self-worth of, I'm going to do it on my own, I want to make sure that I address that and get that out of us. So I say this over and over, we are not saved based on our works, we're not saved based on how good we are, we're not saved based on what I can do. Our salvation is 100% by grace. Our salvation is 100% by faith, 0% by works. I've been saying that as much as I can. You are saved solely because of faith, 0 because of works. So I've been saying that so much. What does that mean? Does that mean that a righteous person can just continue sinning as long as they believe in God? Does that mean I can commit every sin under the sun and I can continue in sin and just sin and then at the end of every night say, "Oh Jesus, I believe in you and I'm good and I'm saved and I'm right in the eyes of God"? Can I keep sinning and just say, "Oh, it's okay that I sin because I believe in God"? That is exactly the question the Apostle Paul was anticipating. The very next chapter of Romans, chapter 6, starts with this very question, because Paul has been spending chapter after chapter saying, look, it's about faith, it's about faith, it's about faith. Paul has been spending so much time telling the Romans, it's not about your works. Your works can't save you. Your works don't help you. Faith, faith, faith. Paul has been spending all 5 of these chapters saying faith, faith, not works. So now to start chapter 6, he knows the question they're going to ask. And let's read it, verse 1 and 2, to see the question that Paul anticipates. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Certainly not. How shall we who died to sin live any longer in it? The question becomes this. The question Paul anticipated and the question that people have asked throughout the ages then is this. If I'm saved just because of my work, because of my faith, if I'm saved 100% by faith, my works can't save me. Does that mean I can keep sinning? Does that mean I can do whatever I feel like? Does that mean I can commit any sin like anybody else in the world? I just do whatever feels good in the moment, and then my works don't matter. I'm saved by faith, so I can do whatever I want. That's the question that Paul knew the Romans would ask, and I believe he knew people through the ages would ask, or at least God knew that throughout the ages people would ask that question. Is that the way salvation works? If salvation is all by grace through faith, then can we just keep sinning so that God can keep showing grace? Grace can increase as my sin increases. Is that the way it should work? Paul's answer is absolutely no. No, no, no. Paul says certainly not. In the King James, he says, God forbid, is the way they translated it back then. How shall we who died to sin live any longer in sin? You see, Paul's now making it clear. Look, you were saved 100% by faith. Your works could not save you. But he says, now that you have been saved, now that you have received salvation, now that you have put your faith in Jesus, now that you have this new life, you're born again by the Spirit. how are you going to keep living in sin? How are you going to keep living with that old man? How are you going to keep doing the things that Jesus died to save you from? How? If you are truly born again, and if you truly know the Lord, and if he's truly saved you, are you going to keep celebrating sin? Are you going to keep rejoicing in sin? Are you going to keep saying, yes, I'm going to sin and sin? Paul says, absolutely not. So what we must understand is this: sanctification is a necessary byproduct of salvation. Sanctification is the process of becoming holy. It's the process of God making us truly holy. He counts us righteous when we're saved. He counts us as holy through faith. And then he also wants to change us from the inside out so we truly become saved. If there is no so that we truly become holy. We're already saved, so we truly become holy. But if there is no sanctification, that means there has been no salvation. Another way of saying it is this: your works are absolutely unable to save you. Your works cannot save you. But if you have been saved, your works absolutely will change. Changing your works does not save you, but being saved changes your works. You will be changed from the inside out. You will be transformed. You will become holy. You will be different if you truly know Jesus. Let me say, this does not mean, well, if I'm saved, I'll never sin again. This does not mean that if I'm saved and yet I still struggle with some sins, I'm not saved. That's not it. We see this clearly as we compare all the scriptures in the New Testament. It's a process. It takes time. God's work in us, God's sanctification takes process. It takes time. And none of us reach 100% perfect, never sin holiness here on this side of eternity. We'll reach that when we get our new body, when we're in the new heaven and the new earth, when we've been glorified. It's a process for all of us, but we must be in the process. As a believer in Jesus, my sin should be getting less and less. My righteousness that God works in me through faith should be getting more and more. My works should be transformed, and I should be more like Jesus, less like me. If I am sinning intentionally, willfully, I'm not repenting, I'm just sinning and saying, well, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, that's a sign that I'm not saved, because the saved person desires righteousness. The born-again man desires to become righteous, desires to be changed. We will become righteous. We will be in that process if we are truly justified, if we truly know Jesus. I'm going to explain a lot more on this tomorrow. You don't want to miss it on the 8-Minute Devotion.
Thank you for listening to the 8-Minute Devotion. Please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you listen to or watch it. And email us at the8minutedevotion@gmail.com with any questions or comments. May God bless you